Women don't play chess, and when they do, they play badly. Okay, wow, all right. what a starting statement. Chess is experiencing a renewed surge of interest thanks in part to The Queen's Gambit, a Netflix show exploring a young American woman's rise to world champion. It's a great show, and it also manages to neatly sidestep any real sociological commentary on what it means for Beth Harmon to be female in this world. However, back in the real world, as a woman heavily involved in the chess scene, the gender politics are much more difficult to ignore. It's hard to be specific about the number of active female players, but most estimates fall somewhere between 5 to 15%. Hu Yifan is the only woman in the FIDE Top 100, coming in at number 86. Judith Polgar, the highest ranked female player of all time, was number 8 back in 2005. There's never been a female world champion. This begs an awkward question. In a game that relies on mental agility and not physical strength, why is there such a significant gender gap in chess rankings? If women really are equal to men, why is that not reflected in those rankings? Biological essentialists. Okay, I've never heard this term before. Biological essentialists. This is something I've never heard. Attempt an answer to this question by claiming that women are fundamentally unable to play chess to the same standard as men. There is something wrong with our brains. Bobby Fischer, one of the greatest chess players of all time, certainly felt this way. He claimed that women were stupid compared to men and played chess like beginners. Biological essentialists tend to believe that the women who do manage to break through to the upper echelons of chess are anomalies rather than proof of female capability. Okay, all right. So let's scroll down. Okay. I guess there was this tweet. A lost interview with Bobby Fischer has resurfaced, and it's remarkable. Okay, yikes. Let's see. Let's listen to this.
About this,
can you hear it now?
Lisa Lane that's getting a lot of publicity about falling in love or something and not being able to play. What do you think of this?
Well, I don't know. Doesn't seem like a very good excuse to me.
Was she a good player?
No, not too good. The women aren't really very good players. I mean, I guess I could give every one of them a night and still win easily. Even the world champion, this Russian woman, Bukova, they're all knight easily.
Why is this? Do women make bad chess players?
Oh, they're terrible chess players. I mean, some are better than others, you know, but
why
they don't
so?
play in men's tournaments. I don't know why. I guess they're just not so smart.
Does this apply to all women, do you think?
Well, I guess so. I don't know. They have never turned out a good woman chess player. Never one that could ever stand up against a man in the history of chess.
Do you enjoy playing against women?
No, I've never played a woman in a tournament game.
Would you?
I'd play him, but I don't think they'd want to play me.
Would you call yourself a misogynist?
Excuse me, what's the definition of that word? A woman?
He doesn't even know what that word means. Oh my God, he doesn't even know what that word means. Now, who's smart now? Oh my gosh, unbelievable.
No? What do you think of women?
When it comes to chess, not too much.
What about other outside chess?
Well, I don't think they should mess in intellectual affairs, you know what I mean? They should keep strictly to the home.
A woman's place is over the hot stove, eh?
No, they can't cook, but they stay in the house cleaning and things.
What can they do?
Well, you know. They should just be at home, waiting for the man to come home.
Oh my God. I don't even know what to say. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. Oh, yikes. Wow. Wow. Okay, that is, I mean, that's like really unacceptable. That, I mean, you can say it's those times, but that's just unacceptable. Like, that's just unacceptable. Unbelievable. All right, someone said it's a deep fake. That's rich, dude. That's really rich. I mean, I don't even know what to say. That's just pathetic. I mean, I have no other words to say other than it's just, I'm shocked and it's pathetic. I mean, the guy basically, he says he says women are not smart, and he doesn't even know what misogyny means. I mean, the guy maybe the guy should have like gone to school and read some books and learned some English. So that's all I'm going to say on that. At first glance, biological essentialism seems to make sense in a world that at least pretends to provide equal opportunities for men and women. There is also the obvious truth that men and women do have observable neurological differences. The male brain tends to weigh 10% more than the female brain, although there is no evidence that this impacts intelligence. The phrase "no evidence" is going to be repeated a lot in this section. In short, there's absolutely no evidence for biologically different skill sets between men and women.
You are the real man.
An adult brain is soaked in the culture that it was raised in, and we constantly see examples of interplay between biology and culture. A study conducted by Hikaru, etc. al. 2018 investigated the differences in navigational skills according to gender and concluded that the worse a country's gender equality index, the greater gender difference in navigational skills. Far from being a static lump of meat, stamped male or female, the brain's pathways are shaped by experience. It's constantly evolving, changing its capacities. What did I say? Etc. al, right? Yeah, okay, whatever. Okay, anyway, in her book, The Gendered Brain, Gina Rippin unpacks the myth of differences between male and female brains. Beyond the missing 5 ounces, modern neuroscientists have been unable to find any conclusive or defining differences in structure or functionality between men and women. Instead, she explains that a gendered world will produce gendered brains. In its rawest form, the brain is no more gendered than the lungs or the liver. It is the world we're born into that turns our gray matter blue or pink. It's also worth pointing out that the weight of all organs are on a spectrum, and no one suggests that heavier noses make one better at smelling. Why apply the same specious reasoning to the brain? It's funny that they use the schnauzer. So that's kind of funny they use the schnauzer as the example. But anyway, let's keep going. All right. Okay. Let's keep going. All right. Biological essentialism is dead in the water. It serves only to create fantasies of male superiority. So, now that it's been firmly established that there are no neurological differences that can account for the lack of female world champions, what else is there? What's left is a cocktail of sociological and statistical factors. One story alone should force essentialists to question their position. Laszlo Polgar had 3 daughters and created 3 chess prodigies, a 100% success rate. Judith Polgar was, at the height of her game, number 8 in the world. Laszlo's premise was simple. Any child, as long as they start studying before 4 years old and specialize their subject by 6, could become a genius in their chosen field. The question of the morality of forcing children into a lifetime of chess notwithstanding, the Polgar story is a compelling anecdote proving that when girls are given strong opportunities, equal access to support, and an environment in which their success is not aberrational, they are perfectly capable on the board. All right, makes sense. Okay, that's a picture of the Polgar sisters, Sophia, Judith, and Susan. Let's keep going. All right, there are very few people, male or female, who receive the same encouragement as the Polgar sisters. In a Tolchin Immergluck, a journalist, Ira Tolchin Immergluck, a journalist, refers to her own experience playing chess as a young woman in Russia. She says that for the first time in her life, she felt true joy when playing chess, that for a while, chess was all she and her friends talked about, that there were moments of pure elation. However, her parents weren't as enthusiastic. They shunted her towards piano. Her experience is only one example, but one imagines that this scenario is played out constantly. Even with equal ability to learn chess to a high standard, it makes no difference if girls do not get the opportunity. Chess is still considered by many to be a boy thing, and girls quite simply are not given the space required to hone their skills. All right, let's keep going. All right. It's not just lack of encouragement, though. It's time, it's priorities. It's well established that women do the bulk of the housework, for example. A 2016 analysis carried out by the UK Office for National Statistics finds that women carry out 60% more unpaid work. All right, I mean, I could speak to this. This is definitely true when I think about my own upbringing, for example, and the number of things that my mom did around the house that she was not paid for. A 2019 study led by McMunn reached similar conclusions. Women perform 16 hours of unpaid labor per week, and men only perform 6. In 93% of couples surveyed, women did the majority of the work. The gap remains even when women are employed more gainfully than their husbands. Wow. A 2014 study led by Besson Casino concludes that the more a woman earns, the less housework her husband does. Whoa, wait a second. So, if I understand this correctly, they're implying that, you know, if let's just say a male works and it's a single male who works and the wife stays at home, the woman does the vast majority of the work and is unpaid for it. But somehow if the woman goes out and earns more and she's like the breadwinner, the husband does even less work? That makes what I mean, what does that mean? Okay, that actually doesn't that imply like guys are like really terrible? Isn't that what it implies? Or am I crazy? Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep scrolling. All right. The gap in unpaid labor starts early. Lamb, etc. al. 2016 discovered that young girls do more chores than young boys, and when mothers spent longer hours away from the home, the girls took on most of the extra work. UNICEF since I have the shout out, you guys saw that comment from Arcanine BX, which says men are cavemen. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, that just broke me. I'm sorry. Give me a second. All right. Okay, let's keep going. UNICEF reports that girls on average perform 40% more chores. It's clear to see the disadvantage girls and women are at here. A disproportionate lack of free time will obviously contribute to lower chess achievement. Also very true. With regard to the lack of achievement, a 2008 study led by Miriam Bilalic makes reference to biological essentialism as a popular explanation for the smaller number of women at the top level of intellectually demanding activities. However, they unequivocally state that there is, in reality, very little performance gap in favor of men for non-statistical theories to explain. There is a logical fallacy concluding that gender differences in the top players is biological. In short, the study concludes that the great discrepancy in the top performance of male and female chess players can be largely attributed to the simple statistical fact: more extreme values are found in larger population. That is to say that the more people in a group, the more likely it is that the people within that group will be anomalous in some way. The fact that roughly 90% of players are men means that there is naturally more deviation in their numbers. It's a numbers game, not a question of male superiority. Okay, this I agree with for sure. This makes sense. So this makes sense. Yes, I have. Unlike Mr. Bobby Fischer, I have lost female players. I lost to Judith Polgar in a simul where I played her in 1997 during the U.S. Open in Hawaii. I lost to Ketevan Arakamiya Grant in Gibraltar, I think in 2008, I believe it was, or 2009. I've lost to Camille Bagansky in the U.S. Championship, I believe, in 2004. So I have, yes, correct. All right. Let's keep scrolling. Okay. Stereotype threat. The concern that one might be the target of negative stereotypes is another potential contributor to the lack of female chess success. In a study conducted by Mas, etc. al. 2008, when women falsely believed that they were playing against another woman, they won roughly 50% of the time. Mas notes that the performance drop was remarkable when reminded of gender chess stereotypes and when they knew their opponent was male. Most interesting of all was the finding that women performed more poorly against the same opponent when they knew they were playing a man compared to when they were told they were playing a woman. So, I mean, this is off topic, but you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of how, like, if as a male, if I know I'm playing a computer program, let's just say someone tells me I'm playing Komodo, for example, I will statistically perform worse than if someone just says I'm playing another human. So it's not to say it's the same thing. Also, probably maybe Magnus as well. I bet if you asked a lot of people and they thought they were playing, some other top player who wasn't Magnus, they would perform worse. So it's the same. I think the same effect is certainly true in general in regards to chess. So all right, let's keep going. Okay. Women, particularly those who spend a lot of time online reading chess news or interacting with the wider community, experience near constant stereotyping. Anyone who has spent 5 minutes on chess forums knows that questions pertaining to gender differences and skill levels come up with alarming frequency, and that women are treated with visible contempt. It seems obvious that an environment in which women are rarely afforded much respect would affect a woman's ability, motivation, and desire to perform to her highest standard. Fair point. Women don't just hear about their own shortcomings from anonymous internet users, however. They also hear it from high-ranking professionals. Eva Repkova heads the Commission for Women's Chess at the International Chess Federation, FIDE, and even she believes that women are naturally disadvantaged in chess, suggesting that girls are more naturally suited to flower arranging. How are girls supposed to be inspired by a woman who quite clearly doesn't believe in them? It's an astounding mismatch of profession and person, and speaks volumes about how deeply ingrained the anti-woman sentiment is in chess culture. It is unsurprising to hear this kind of thing from men. From other women, it is unsurprising to hear this kind of thing from men. From other women, it is a total betrayal. Okay, let's keep scrolling. Okay. Okay. Nigel Short is an English grandmaster as well as a vice president of FIDE. In 2015, he asserted that women are hardwired to be worse at chess than men, explaining that the issue is not that women are less intelligent, just different. He posits that his wife is better at emotionality and he is better at cards. Nigel Short, who left school at 17 to focus full-time on chess, has zero qualifications in the field of neuroscience. Although he seems to believe otherwise, mastery of chess does not transfer to any other sphere, especially not one as complex as the brain. He has absolutely no authority on the subject, and for him to pretend otherwise is peak charlatanism. Short and Repkova's claims of some kind of inherently gendered neurological skill set have been specifically referred to by Gina Rippin as simply a reframing of the argument that women are less intelligent than men. It is just another way to dismiss women attempting to break out of their socially prescribed roles. There is, again, absolutely no evidence that male and female brains have different skill sets, nothing to suggest that women are inherently better at emotionality or flower arranging or sociology, and no evidence to suggest that men are inherently better at engineering or math or physics. It is deeply embarrassing that the leaders of the chess community continue to cling to archaic, unscientific ideas that would seem at home in the 1950s. Also, I tend to agree with the statement. There's a lot that could be said about Nigel beyond this. I don't need to get into it. But I do think certainly these claims, like even what Repkova says, I think the way she says it sounds really bad. I think she means it in a slightly different manner, to be fair, but overall, it is true that you have people in these roles of prominence in the chess world saying these things, and if anything, that's only going to further reinforce, I should say, the stereotype that's going to make girls and women a lot less likely to play the game. So let's keep going. Okay. The willingness to treat women as commodities trickles down from FIDE into the online chess community. The streamer Cutie Cinderella has spoken at length about her terrible experience during the PogChamps tournament, calling out the sexism and toxicity of chess culture. She stated that her looks were a topic of conversation in a way that was never an issue for the male participants, and she had a complaint filed against her on chess.com for being crude, despite the fact that her jokes were, if anything, less crude than the male players. Alexandra Botez, one of the preeminent female chess streamers, has also spoken out about sexism she's received, stating that predatory behavior has been normalized, explaining that because of the dearth of female players, many men go on the hunt for women and girls. Chessmen, Botez says, are perfectly willing to use their age and position to take advantage of the girls they encounter, recounting her own experience when she was 14 and drunk, was preyed upon by a man in his 20s. It seems obvious to me that in a deeply male-dominated environment, women and girls will be at a disadvantage in terms of personal safety. However, there also seems to be a blind spot here for a lot of otherwise good, kind men, in that they seem to think that experiencing sexism is unusual. That is not true. Chess culture is steeped in it. Every single woman I spoke to had stories to tell me about being discounted, about being stalked, about being consistently and unremittingly considered less worthy than their male counterparts. This is the norm, and to pretend otherwise compounds the problem. Wow. Well, I mean, I'm not really sure what to say on this. What I will say is I will say in terms of Cutie Cinderella talking about this, I think it's extremely unfair that barring any mention of this, that Hafu, for example, did win the PogChamps tournament completely. She won overall, and we did not hear the same complaints from her. So to me, I think it's a little bit disingenuous to talk about Cutie Cinderella and to not mention Hafu if you're going to refer to PogChamps and the event. So I do have a slight issue with that. Everything else, I mean, for the most part, I agree. And I think when you talk about these specific events or you talk about these certain moments, they do exist, unfortunately. But I will say I think it's very, very much referring to one single event that happens every 2 years when you look at the number of stories and the very poor behavior that we see from males in the chess world. I think it's very specific to one event that happens every 2 years. So let's keep going on. All right. Okay. Let me make sure. I think we're good. The tendency for some men to react with angry disbelief when they lose to a woman illustrates perfectly the lack of respect afforded to us. In 2008, Ilmar Starostits, a Latvian grandmaster, accused Anna Rudolph, a Hungarian IM, of receiving transmissions to her lip balm tube. Such an accusation is so patently ridiculous that it ought not to be validated at all. But Rudolph was still compelled to make her statement to chessdom.com proclaiming her innocence, which is more unbelievable here. That a woman is receiving secret transmissions to a lip balm tube, or that she simply outclassed the other player on that occasion. The fact that many people thought the former is astounding. Again, at the time, I 100% agree. Honestly, if it's 2020, it seems like, I mean, accusations or people doing things, it could be male or female, but it's not. It's something that could happen. And it would not seem far-fetched in 2020. If you go back to 2008, of course, it is very far-fetched. A titled friend of mine showed me a conversation that she'd had with a man she'd beaten, during which he claimed that he had never before lost to a woman. Women can't beat him, and boasted of how many female grandmasters he had beaten over the board. He could not conceive of a woman beating him. We both thought that actually he had meant it as a compliment, but a tip for any men reading this, neither of us thought the comment complimentary. The implication that good female players are a deviation from the norm, that being a woman is an inevitable handicap, is simply not a compliment. The same friend, when I told her I was looking for female players to talk to for this piece, reacted with intense skepticism. In the end, she was right. It took 4 months to gather enough women willing to talk to me, and none of them wanted to be named. Another friend referred to a strange kind of dynamic that I've experienced myself, treating female players as unicorns. The name itself implies something mythically rare, magical, non-existent, and we agreed that at first it's kind of fun. It's flattering. You receive adulation for simply being yourself. Who wouldn't find this entertaining? All right, so let's keep going. It doesn't say entertaining. One of her male associates ended up stalking her obsessively. She also grew tired of feeling constantly watched by other male players. As a result, she has changed her username from something overtly female to something more gender neutral. When I suggested that in the end, treating female players as unicorns is nothing more than a fancy form of othering, she said, exactly. As for me, I've been in Discord servers where chess players have openly posted softcore pornography, only of girls, of course. I don't think there was ever any malice in this. I think that women are so secondary in the chess community that it would never occur to most men that a woman might be reading the chat in the first place. They would never consider that posting images of passive, sexualized women might create an environment in which we don't feel comfortable or welcome. It's difficult to criticize these people specifically, though when the executives are doing the exact same things. David Yada, Fide's marketing and communications officer, has a Tumblr account on which he posts a fairly steady stream of beautiful half-naked women. He does the same on one of his Twitter accounts. Both accounts use his real name and real face. There is no sense of secrecy or privacy. He seems to have no problem associating his Fide job with his penchant for soft pornography. Whoa, wow. Okay, that's pretty hot. Again, I mean, I'm not going to defend most of these things, but I think if we're talking about David, he's been doing photography for a very long time. and so trying to say that somehow he's in this position now and he has to, you know, discard or forget about it. I mean, I think there should be some leeway there because of how long he has been a photographer. So I have a slight issue with that. Again, it feels like over the top flaming, in my opinion. Because considering how long he's been a photographer, this is not something where suddenly he's been a photographer for the last year or two. It's only in the last year or two that he's become part of the governing body FIDE's team. So I think to me, I think it's a little bit over the top personally, but let's keep going. I suspect that he would defend those pictures on their artistic merit. There may be some truth to that. I would, however, question why the only women he seems to consider consistently artistically meritful are young, beautiful, thin, and naked. I think we all know the answer to that one. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, I'm gonna call BS on that point because there is a book that David Yotta put out called The Thinkers. It is a great book. It has pictures of many different chess players, and there are plenty of pictures of male and female people who are not, they might not have makeup on, they might not look their best, and there are plenty of pictures of male and female players in that book. So I think that's ridiculous. I think that's I take deep offense to that personally. I think that's just that's just showing a complete lack of understanding. So I have a problem with that part of it. I've had unsolicited requests for dating advice from people I barely know simply by dint of being a woman. I've had strangers requesting my phone number and giving me theirs. I've been assumed to be male more often than I can count, and I've been accused of lying about my own gender for the clout. What clout are they imagining? I am nearly always the only woman in the room, and while I tolerate it, I understand why many women can't. It's an enormous level of responsibility to be forced to represent womanhood as a whole, and most women don't want it. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, let's keep going. I've had to hold my tongue more times than I can count for fear of being immediately dismissed as nothing more than social justice warrior feminist B. I find it difficult to trust the friends I do have in this community because of the misogynistic and hateful behavior I've seen in otherwise good men. Men have told me that my fears for my own safety are unrealistic and overblown, while the women have told me that no, this is realistic, you are not paranoid, you're exactly right. I found the environment less overtly hostile over the board, but it's still far from easy. When I joined my local chess club, I was, as expected, the only woman present, and at least 50 years younger than the majority of them. Oof. The very first night I went, the very first interaction I had with any other club member, I was stopped by a man who looked to be about 80. He told me loudly while looking me up and down, in the way that women are deeply familiar with, that he would like to play a game with me. His tone left me in no doubt as to what kind of game he was referring to. His friend, who was equally ancient, burst out laughing, proclaiming that he would tell the other man's wife. Okay. Yeah, pretty gross. Okay, let's keep going. All right. This interaction set the tone for the club as a whole. Whenever I was playing, the men would find excuses to walk around the room and, coincidentally, of course, end up around my table. This level of scrutiny did not seem to be applied to anyone else. I was treated as something of a novelty, the unicorn again, and that gets tiresome very quickly. I was advised repeatedly on best play by a man I rarely lost to. He quite evidently was not in the position to teach me anything at all, yet persisted in attempting to explain to me a game at which I outplayed him. I never feared for my safety there. The vast majority of the players looked as though they would have crumbled with a swift kick to the shins. Despite their inability to treat me as anything other than a curiosity, most of them seemed kind and genial, if socially awkward. The fact remains, however, that it is difficult to be the only woman in the room. It is vexing to be treated like an exhibit rather than another club member there for the same boring reason that everyone else was, to play chess. It wears you down. I lasted only a few months. I have often considered leaving the community entirely. The thing is, though, that I never do. For every conversation that makes me reconsider my faith in humanity, there are two more that reaffirm it. For every person who attempts to make me feel inferior, there is someone who spends hours with me walking me through old games. The community does at its center have good bones. Despite everything, I like it here. All right, let's keep going. This leads me to a paragraph I've had trouble with, approaching solutions. The community does have good bones, but it also has deep rot, and that rot starts at the top. How do we as women reconcile our position in chess when the vice president FIDE thinks that our brains are functionally incapable of playing chess on the same level that he is? When the head of the Commission for Women's Chess believes that women are better suited for flower arranging than playing chess. I don't know the answer to that. Alexandra Botes has expressed the same sentiments. I'm encouraging more girls to get into a space that I know is nasty and toxic. Is that even the right thing to do? I don't know the right answer to that either. I do want to speak directly to the women reading this. I know that a lot of you will have been hiding behind general neutral usernames. I know that a lot of you will be reluctant to engage with the wider chess community. I know these things because I have many friends who have told me this, and I have been there myself. And in response, I ask myself the question, if I am not open about being a woman, who does that serve? I suppose I wouldn't receive so many phone numbers, so in a way, it does serve me. But I think in reality, it mostly serves the people who don't believe that women can play chess, who think that chess is still at its core something for men. I think there's value in being very visibly female. If nothing else, I think it makes female newcomers feel less alone and less daunted by the wall of maleness in front of them. Of course, it's complicated, though, evidenced by the fact that I'm writing this anonymously. I would quite genuinely fear for my safety if I wrote this under my username. That in itself is indicative of a huge problem, and I hope that if nothing else, you internalize the fact that I and all the female chess players I've spoken to about this article thought that there was a non-zero chance that I'd end up in a dead ditch if I used my name. It's very easy to dismiss this as baseless paranoia if you're not female, but I am a woman who grew up on the internet, and I know for a fact that it is not. Okay, so let's keep going. So what else is there? To the men reading, I would urge you to consider whether your own actions make the community a better or a worse place for women. I would ask you whether you genuinely, despite what you'd say publicly, do think that women are inherently capable, and that I would ask you to reflect honestly on your answer. Treat any women you encounter as fully fledged human beings, because we are. We just want to play chess, same as you. If any women reading this want to share your own stories with us, we at Lead Chess would love to hear them. And from me to you, keep playing. We deserve our experience the same that Beth Harmon had. We shouldn't have to laugh at the ludicrousness of that idea. We are as much a part of this community as anyone else, and no one should make us feel otherwise. All right. I mean, there's a lot that can be said or unpacked. In general terms, certainly I do agree with large portions of it. I think certainly over the board is different than the internet. I think on the internet, because everybody is anonymous in a different kind of way, the reactions and the interactions that you have with people will be significantly different because people are behind that, wall of anonymity. So I do agree that I think certainly there are issues. And I would also add on this note, I know this was not written by Chessbay, but I do think a large part of the hostility and the threats and all these things, I know from having spoken to her that they totally could apply to her as well, and it's not a joke in any way, shape, or form. So I would say that. In general, I tend to agree with this. I think in a way it's a little bit over the top with some of the things that are said. Having said that, though, I think certainly it is true that there are problems in the chess world, and I think if anything, the lack of female players only exacerbates this, because then when you see female players, frankly, if I'm going to be blunt, men who play chess go to the chess club, play over the board. You don't see female players, and so it only exacerbates it and makes it worse. So I think that's certainly true. However, having said that, I think there is a very valid point, which is that I think a fair chunk of people, if I'm being honest, they do believe that women are just inferior when it comes to chess, and it's very unfortunate that there is that attitude, but it has to change. I think it's like a lot of things. I think with every new generation, things will change, but it's not something that's going to be solved overnight. And I think trying to suggest that it can be solved overnight won't happen. It's going to take time, and it'll probably take another generation for that to occur. But I do think certainly women are equal to men, but there are a lot of barriers that are put up in front of female players to sort of prevent them from getting good at chess. And I think the Polgars are a good example. I think if you look at certain countries, take a country like Georgia, for example, that's had a very long history of very strong female chess players, and honestly, very few strong male chess players. And again, I think that's a cultural thing. I think when you go back 30-40 years, you have some female players who've gone and become the women world champion. There's a very strong culture, and it's viewed as something normal, which I think, again, it sort of reinforces that fact that when it comes to chess in the great country of Georgia, that females do like the game. They take it up because they see it as something prestigious, and there's a very long tradition. You know, you look at China. You have Jun, the former women's world champion, very strong chess player. I think she sort of started that trend. And in China, the strongest female players there, I mean, the women's world champion even is from China. So I think it depends on the country and sort of what the culture is in terms of whether it's considered acceptable, not acceptable, or just something that happens. But I would say overall, I do agree. I think some parts are overstated, but I think certainly it's legitimate, and there are great concerns, and it will take a lot of time. But again, you have to understand. You do really need to be aware of how it is, and having known a lot of people, having seen a lot of these sorts of things at various events. That's why, for me, I'm not laughing it off or saying, "Oh, well, it's nonsense," because it isn't. It's very serious, and unfortunately, there are a lot of barriers put up, and I think as a chess world, we should try to be better. So I do agree with the majority of what is said. Do I think certain parts are overstated? Yes, of course. But I do think it is pretty valid. So I think it's a good article, and I think certainly for men who play chess, we should be very much aware kind of the struggles that females do have to go through playing the game of chess, and sort of the misogyny and all these other things that go along with it. So yeah, we should try to be better. And I think things are going the right way, I will say. But there is a long way to go. So all right, you guys, it's a long article. And yeah, I mean, again, I think the fact that this is written the author didn't even put their name on this article, I think speaks volumes. And honestly, I think it's actually better that the person who wrote this, the lady who wrote this, did not put her name on this, because I do agree that when she says, would she end up in a ditch? Like, you can laugh it off, but it's not a joke. And I think there definitely are some male players who would read this article, and they would be very offended, and they would be like, okay, well, this person, we have to get rid of her, or something abhorrent like that. So it's unfortunate, it really is, but we just need to be better as a whole.